Why hello there friends, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be working on the back patio RC rock crawler playground, and this video was brought to you by ADHD and crippling insomnia, which kept me up all night trying to think of ways I could make this work. And that's because today we are going to be adding a Teeter Totter right here. Now, as you can see, some minor changes have been made since the last video, the main addition being this right-hand side staircase. This is at a lot lighter of an angle than our left-hand side, and that gives the stock SCX-24 a little bit more opportunity to actually climb up to the top. Now, before we get too deep into this, I'm going to let computer-edited me behind the camera tell you guys about the thought process. Hi there, computer-edited me. Not really paid enough to do this, but I was asked to do it as a personal favor, so yeah, you find two Y sticks, you put a stick in the middle, two sticks going across that stick, those sticks move, Teeter Totter. Got it? Awesome, here you go, here's a thumbs up. Have a good day. Now, alongside this new actual feature, we are going to need to find some rocks that can be used as a stepping stone to get us up onto this ladder. I'd like to put a couple big rocks on this end that we can use as a crawling obstacle, and one more big rock over here that can be used as a turning point to get onto the lava rock. So we need to head ourselves on out and find some rocks and sticks. Alright, I think we've got some pretty good blueprints here. These are going to need to be cut down to size, but this nice Y-axis here is going to give us a place for our fulcrum to roll in the middle. We'll obviously weight it a little bit heavier to one side so that it always falls back to that side. Let's go ahead and start by chopping this boy down to size. Looks like I've got those lined up about as well as we're going to get them. So we want to go ahead and cut right about there. Well, those are cut to size and by some form of magic are standing on their own. I'm starting to see the first problem of this build though, and that is that this is not going to be long enough. We're either going to have an incredibly steep incline to a sheer cliff drop-off, or we're going to need to cut those down a bit. Alternatively, I could go out and try and find some longer sticks, but I think this will be a problem best solved after breakfast. And with the wife out of town for the weekend, I've had to resort to my own culinary imagination to whip up something phenomenal to eat. I've gone with a bread sandwich and a bowl of ice soup. The bread sandwich, as you can see, is 2 pieces of white with the controversial third piece of white in the middle, and the bowl of ice soup is of the tap water variety. I'm gonna dig into this and do some thinking. That nutritious and delicious breakfast was exactly what I needed because I think I found the solution. If we use a larger stick for the driving up side, that will make that heavier, and then we can screw in a smaller stick on the driving down side. That way, when the vehicle transitions its weight, the fulcrum will move over to one side, tipping it down on this end, and then once the vehicle is off, the weight will transfer back over to the heavier side, bringing it back to a sitting position. I think that's going to be the final idea here. We'll see how it goes, but that will allow us to use this as high as they can go, which will allow for some more fun and challenge. Let's get to it. First things first, I want to get these two screwed in, and I'm thinking right about here in the center of the uneven bars is going to be a good spot for that. We're going to put one of them up as close as we can to the outside, and the second one as far away as it'll need to be, leaving as much room in the middle for more obstacles to come. We've got ourselves a little patch cleared out, and I'm just going to drill a pilot hole directly up the center. Boom. Now, because of this bend in the middle, we're going to have to mount him this way, and I think that's going to be about perfect. Let's put another pilot hole. Alright, screws coming in. Alright, we have the tip of the screw coming through, so I can try and get that lined up right on our pilot hole. Alright, that's lined up, the top looks good. Let's see if we can get her in here. Stripping the screw, we might need to pull back out and try with a fresh one now that we have some grooves in the bottom of this, but it seems like it's gonna work. Same thing, I'm gonna bring the screw up till we have just the tip poking out. Let's get that lined up right there. All right, round two. Oh yeah, much easier. Unfortunately, I heard a huge crack there. Oh no, that pilot hole was not deep enough. Well, back out we go for another perfectly shaped Y-stick. Major bummer on that. Ah, I see what happened. We lost half of our drill bit inside there. Unfortunate. Let's try this again. To try and make this go a little smoother, we have a much heftier drill bit on here, and I am going to be using a little bit shorter screw, which I still think will lock it in place nicely, but won't risk that crack like we had last time. Let's go ahead and give it a pilot hole. Perfect. Let's get our pilot hole lined up. We're ready to rock. There we go. That is nice, locked in place. All we need to do is figure out how far we want him to be situated, and we've got ourselves a pretty dang good start. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is going to be the thickness of bar we use here, but just as a mock-up, that looks pretty good. This can spin. We may need to sand it down and put a little bit of oil on there, but I'm assuming the weight of the vehicle transfer is going to take care of that. So let's go ahead and mark up where that needs to be. We'll put a hole through, get that drilled in, and then we can start working on the center beam. All right, we got both our pilot holes ready. I'm going to bring the screw up. There we go. Now we want to make sure we've got this facing the right direction. That's going to be as good as we can get it. That's it. Heard a little creak, but I think that's perfect. Let's go. Yeah, that definitely is able to move. It looks like it's all lined up pretty properly. So let's go ahead and get to work on making this bar, which I think I'm gonna go with something a little bit slimmer like this, and then possibly shave the bark off so it spins a little easier. Fortunately, in our tailings pile down here, I think we found, yeah, that is nice. Smooth, it rolls really well, no excess cutting over the end on either side. Let's use that. I'm liking this angle. I've tested it with the stock SCX and it seems to be able to handle it pretty well. I think what I want to do is chop these two pieces right here, and then we will move and transition over to the smaller half for the tilting side. But this gives us a good base layer. Both track widths fit good. I'm gonna go ahead and send it. I'm liking the way that's looking. With the 5-inch track width, it's sitting a little wide, which means the 4-incher on that should be just perfect. Now we can go back and move those if we need to later on, but as a starting point, I'm just going to go ahead and send a couple holes through there, put them through here, and we'll get it bolted into our fulcrum in the middle there. Well, there we go. We've got that nice pivot point. We're definitely going to need to chop a little bit off right here, but I think we're able to go and move on to attaching our lighter side now. I added a brace here, and it's looking like if we just put a couple holes through there, we can mount these guys onto the bottom, and then put a brace on that side, and we'll have ourselves one fully completed obstacle. Just like that. Let's see what happens if we notch this in. Hell yeah. Looks like we may need to do a tiny bit of clearance removal on one of those sticks over there. But that's a fully functional Teeter Totter. Our bar is nice and completed and ready to be installed, where we can go ahead and give it its first test run. Now, just like I had to do with the uneven bar, I think I am going to have to put a cheater in here for the stock SCX. The back end slips in pretty much every time I try and get it up here. But the rock buggy with its wider track width crawls right up, so let's go ahead and give this its trial run. Now we're just starting from the bottom in the sand, seeing if we can hop up. Oh, easy. Took a little bit to get over that bar, but now that we are on, that is phenomenal. It just walks right up. Need a little extra throttle there. Like I said before, we are going to have to do some trimming on our Y right here. And we're in uncharted territory. How far up do I need to go before this thing starts tipping? Oh no! Well, a counterweight may be necessary because that was almost all the way and it did not want to tip. Let's give it one more try. Again, just starting from the bottom and seeing how we can work our way up here. Seems like the bottom half is very manageable for this width. I think we did a fantastic job. It seems like we might have some trouble with our top half. And we're definitely losing grip. I can see the wheels sliding backwards. Oh my gosh. Oh no! Come on, buddy. Oh, what a bummer. Alright, well, we know what we need to do. We either need to add a cheater bar somewhere right around here, plus a counterweight on this side, or we just need to rearrange things a little better. I have two ideas for a simple fix here. The first would be to just add a tiny bit of height onto this end, which we would need to make a more permanent solution for, but we can at least now try it and see if it's doable. Second, if that doesn't work, I'm going to put a counterweight right here across the bottom. That way this side will tip down a little bit easier. Test number one with the slightly raised up starting side. Here we go. Again, this does not seem to be the problem. We can just walk up this almost without thinking about it. Here is where we were starting to lose traction earlier. And we're still losing traction, so we definitely need that counterweight. Whoa! Oh man, that was worth every hour I've put into this. No way. It looks like with an added counterweight, we have ourselves one fully completed obstacle and we can move on to getting some rocks. Now, being that this is Arizona and our one greatest natural export is piles of rubble, finding rocks shouldn't be too hard whatsoever. Getting them in my backpack and hiking them home might be a bit more challenging, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I know I've seen some piles of river rock out here, which I think might be the perfect material for what we're looking for, and we also need to keep our eyes open for some smaller rocks to use as stair steps to get up on top of things. These 3 river rocks look like they'll fit and won't be too heavy to get home in one trip, so I'm going to go ahead and start there. There we go. One, oh god, very heavy backpack, ready to rock. Well, either the straps on my 7-year-old backpack are going to rip, or we're going to make it home with 3 rocks. The backpack held up. My back, however, will never be the same. And with a lot of different placement options, I think we found the one that suits our needs best. This gives us a nice obstacle to run up to the Teeter Totter, plus it gives us a good 2.5 inches of lift, making this the perfect size so that the second we get onto these bars over here, everything starts to tilt down. Now I want to see if I can do both of these obstacles back to back. I have a feeling it's going to take a few attempts, but let's cut to the one where it worked, and I'm going to edit in some engine sounds.
3 days later.
God. 3 days later. Oh my gosh. Alright, a couple final thoughts before we round this one up. I think everything came together better than I could have hoped for. I was hoping for something that was simplistic yet challenging, and I think we came out much more on the challenging side, and that's just due to the fact that sticks aren't completely straight, and getting two that lined up exactly perfectly was a fair challenge. With the ones I do have, there's a couple spots going up the Teeter Totter where you're resting millimeters of rubber on the wood, and if you move either direction, you're falling right off. But that led to a much more fun and exciting experience when I actually was able to do it. And after a few days, I was able to do the Teeter Totter pretty much every single time. It was the uneven bars that were a lot more difficult to do back to back. I hope you guys liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.